Boldwood presents Secrets and Sunshine by the Sunflower Cliffs, written by Georgina Troy and read by Gloria Sanders. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Chapter 1. "I hope you're phoning to tell me you've arrived safely," Ollie asked, his tone willing her to confirm that she had. "Yes." She blew her nose again, wondering why she always felt the need to phone her best friend every time she became too miserable. "Nothing awful has happened since you dropped me off at the airport this morning, and I haven't changed my mind about being here if that's what you're worried about." "Good. Now stop snivelling and go and search for an Italian bloke to take your mind off Jeremy." He was silent for a moment. "Look, I know you think all your dreams for the future have disappeared," he added gently, "but you'll make more." Paige supposed he was right, but it was difficult to imagine her life without Jeremy in it. "You never really liked him much, did you?" Ollie cleared his throat. "I just never pictured you as a trophy wife. You're far too ambitious for that. Anyway, he was too flamboyant, always having to drive expensive cars and wearing bespoke suits." "I suppose so." She thought back to her wedding plans. "He was only saying the other day how well his morning suit for the wedding was coming along. I still can't quite believe it's not going to happen." "Yes, well, one of these days you'll be grateful for him calling it off. Not every man is full of his own self-importance with a need to show everyone how successful he is. Look at me, for instance," he laughed. "Go on. Get out there and find someone new." "Surely you don't seriously expect me to be interested in anyone after everything that's happened?" She slumped down on the balcony chair conveniently placed under the ivy-covered pergola, grateful for its shade from the midday Italian heat. "I suppose his family must be delighted he's replaced me with someone more to their taste, socially." "Don't be such a drip," he said. "So what if they are? You couldn't stand his snooty mother anyway. She was always comparing you to posh exes of his. Anyone would think that idiot was worth keeping. Now get off your bum, put on a pair of your more colourful sandals. Fine, but if I can't find something to wear that doesn't make my bottom look the size of a Shetland pony, I'm not going." Paige glanced at the yellow shift dress she'd just dropped onto the bed and wished she hadn't bothered packing it. "You'll be back in Jersey soon enough, moaning about wasting your trip. If nothing else, you can get inspiration for your next set of designs." "You've been talking to my sister, haven't you?" "How can you tell?" "You don't know anything about women's shoes, and I've never heard you say the word sandal before." She laughed. "Clem's worried about you. I had to stop her from racing round to Jeremy's house and giving him hell for jilting you." Paige chewed her lip guiltily. She should have turned to Clem before Ollie, but was worried about upsetting her sister further. And anyway, Ollie had been her best friend for so long that she was used to confiding in him. She thought back to how strange it had seemed when her sister and Ollie first began dating. She was used to them being together now, though, and hated to think that her distress at being jilted might make them feel awkward for being so happy and in love. Her one-person honeymoon had been the only good thing to come out of this wedding mess. She still couldn't believe she'd had the nerve to come to Sorrento alone. "I need time to think. A breakup is always hard, and it's only been a week since everything happened. You'll be fine, though, I just know it. Once you've had time to recover from the shock, I bet you'll come back here and be ready to focus on your shop again." He was probably right. But it was still a little difficult accepting that Jeremy had changed his mind about their marriage, and she hadn't seen it coming. Then again, at least now she understood why he'd been acting so strangely recently. So much for pre-wedding nerves. "Paige, are you still there?" Had Jeremy turned to Gretchen because she'd spent all her time thinking about future designs for her shoes, like he'd said? "Stop dwelling on that jerk!" Ollie shouted, interrupting her thoughts. "Ol, you're the perfect best friend and always ready to listen to me." She couldn't help smiling. He knew her so well, and she hated the thought that her situation was causing upset for those closest to her. "Probably because you don't often moan about things," he laughed, his voice sounding tinny down her antiquated phone. "When you get back, we can spend time working on the new website designs." "Good. I know the one I have now isn't nearly stylish enough for the image I want to project." She brushed a fly off her ankle. "Never mind that now. You go and make the most of that incredible place." "I thought I'd have a look at the shoe shops here and see how their designs compare with mine." "You see?" Ollie laughed. "You must be feeling a little better because you're thinking about your shoes." "Right. I'll put some ideas together while you go and mooch around Sorrento." "Thanks, Ol," she said, glancing towards the window and staring at the rays of white gold light filtering through the metal shutters. "Good. Now get out. I don't want you back in that room of yours until it's bedtime." "Okay, I'm going. But I won't enjoy myself," she teased before replacing the receiver of the 80s-style phone. Paige picked up her red clutch bag, slipped on the matching shoes she had designed to complement it, and set off towards the confines of the old town. Treading carefully along one of the narrow roads, she breathed in the scent of oregano from the spice-filled air. This was more like it. She walked down a set of narrow steps, at times holding onto the handrail, especially where they tilted away from the cliff face. She stopped and concentrated on not looking down, staring at the spectacular views across the sea to the other side of the Bay of Naples. She gripped on tightly, watching her every step, and breathed a sigh of relief as she reached the small supermarket at the beginning of the main thoroughfare. She was a little surprised to see so many designer shops dotted along both sides of the road. Forgetting her nerve-wracking walk, she paid particular interest to the shoe shops and thought about the rumours her father had shared with her before her fateful meal with Jeremy. What if her dad was right about de Grey's? It had cost her a great deal to rent a concession in Jersey's largest department store, and she didn't think she would be able to afford to open another shop so soon after moving to King Street. Paige stepped into the road. Catching her heel on the edge of the pavement, she tripped, just as a car she hadn't noticed before skidded towards her. Closing her eyes, she waited for the impact of the car bonnet. But hands came from nowhere, catching her under her arms, pulling her out of the way. She didn't understand what her rescuer was saying to her in the confusion, but managed to regain her footing with his help. "Grazie," she said, smoothing down her skirt. She was about to say something else when the immaculate hero smiled briefly, said something, and pointed to indicate that he had somewhere to go. Then he was gone, among the crowd of pedestrians passing her by. Paige didn't want to know if anyone else had seen her reckless attempt to cross the road, so stopped to gaze at the closest window display while she gathered her senses. It dawned on her that none of the shoes in this shop had designs as quirky as her own. She could see the beautifully made shoes had prices similar to what she charged, and she walked in. "Buongiorno." She gave them her friendliest smile, and trying to remember the sentence she'd looked up in her Italian for Idiots book, said, Vorrei cons...